Everybody, Brian back with you, co-founder at Strong Tower Training and a Z-Health practitioner. I'm really excited about this series where we're going to talk about pain neuroscience a little bit. Why is this important? Well, pain and chronic pain has been on the rise, and it's also been redefined over the last few years. So the length of time that it takes before pain is defined as chronic now has changed. We also know that when people are in pain, they have less energy. It leads to chronic fatigue sometimes, and that can be a tough cycle to get out of. So a really important piece of getting out of pain is actually understanding it. So the education behind how your brain and body really function and how the brain is actually the driver of pain more so than we used to think is really important to understand. So part number one here, education actually can help people have a decrease in pain. It lowers the threat level of pain a lot of times. So the brain basically does three things. We're going to start out with just some really basic neurology. This is oversimplified neurology actually, but the brain, you can think of it doing three key things, and it's really important that we understand this to basically be able to maximally help other people and ourselves get out of pain, live pain-free, and have healthy movement, healthy performance throughout life. So part number one here, the brain takes in input from the body. So we have the body, and it's constantly taking in inputs. And that might be auditory, it might be visual up here above the neck, it might be touch on the face, it might be touch, light touch, sharp sensation, maybe it's hot or cold. Somewhere in the body, and those inputs are constantly coming in. And the second piece here is based on all those inputs, your brain makes a decision about them, and it takes the sum of all those inputs, makes a decision about what to do with them. It might be deciding what to do with a dog barking. It might be deciding what to do with another driver in a car. And so the decisions are based on our education, our beliefs, and our attitudes. So attitude and emotion actually come into play here as well. And then the last thing the brain does is it creates outputs. So the outputs might be good or bad. One of the outputs that we're going to talk a lot about is actually pain and pain signals. That is a little shift in thinking for some people. So pain is an output of the brain based on the sum of all the inputs and our current threat level. So we'll revisit that concept and dig more into it in this series, understanding pain neuroscience a little bit better. But just remember from this video, the brain does three things, takes in all those inputs, decides what to do with that, and then it creates outputs. The last thing to mention here that's key is our reflexes in the body, in the spinal cord, and in the brain. Our reflexes can also influence outputs. So outside of thoughtful decision making about the sum of inputs and outputs, creating those outputs, we also sometimes have very fast reactions or outputs that are reflexive, and we're wired innately with reflexes, so it's an important piece to understand that that also plays into outputs as well. Thanks to Z-Health Performance for the education. I've done a lot of my continuing education with them, and they're awesome as far as understanding applied neuroscience and then using that to make people just perform better in life. Sometimes that's in the rehab setting. A lot of chiropractors, functional medicine doctors, physical therapists study with them, or maybe it's more on the performance side. There's strength coaches, there's personal trainers that also study in the Z-Health system. So that's where this three-part system, what the brain does, comes from. And I look forward to talking to you in the next video. We're going to keep unpacking some of these concepts so that you can better understand how your brain and body were meant to function, and it can give you the keys back, so to speak, in terms of your health and your performance. Thanks for tuning in.